want to find that drive and focus that has you locked in and on fire every single day, my book, The Mirror of Motivation, will do it for you. I bought a copy for you. You take care of the shipping. The book is free. Click the link down there. I got you. Mic check 1, 2. You are now tuned in to the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there even when the success you've expected to achieve is yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative, the go-getter energy that moves you, me, and everyone else out there to go make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. We put all this together. What you get is the mindset, the method, the philosophy, the book, the show known as Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. Today's topic: everything is material. People have asked me, maybe you wondered, how do you, Dre, come up with so much content? How do you continually make material, whether it's through video, written content, books, this show right here, anything else I'm going to put out, virtual reality, if that's what we're doing 5 years from now? How do you keep creating so much content? The way that I do it is, yes, I do have the ability to come up with a lot of ideas. I've talked about that in separate episodes of this show. And yes, I do have ways of breaking down ideas that maybe other people don't have, skills that they haven't developed when it comes to breaking down ideas, to take something that seems pretty innocuous and making it into something that could actually be valuable for anybody. But it's also because everything that happens to me, everything that I experience, everything that I go through, whether it's something that I have physically myself been through, something that I heard about, something that I read, I watch, I hear about, I see when I'm looking out the window, anything that I go through is has the potential to become future material. So that means every dumb question that somebody asks me, every good question somebody asks, every smart comment that I get, every funny experience, and a frustrating experience, an experience where I was just feeling a certain energy and somebody says something, somebody did something, I said something, I did something. All of these things become material in the future. I look at everything as material because, what did we talk about a few weeks ago? I believe it was episode 1273. What business are you in? What business are you in? One of my businesses is creating content, as you probably already know. Probably how you ended up listening to this right now. You know, maybe somebody told you, maybe you already figured it out, that I create a whole lot of this stuff and it's high quality material. This is one of my businesses. This is how I got in the game, really, when it comes to in the online space, when it comes to content creation and all the stuff that I put out. As in, I guess we can call it an infopreneur or thought leader or whatever you want to call it. I came into the game by creating content. And one of the main ways that I can do that is because I can always come up with good ideas. That's because, for any of you listening to this, if you are or you plan to create content as a way of establishing your name, because that's 100% how I got my name out there, creating content. It wasn't through advertisements. It wasn't because I was connected to some big name person or I was on some big platform where anybody on that platform just gets a whole bunch of attention. I came from pretty much nobody knowing who I was. There was no reason for my name to have it wasn't any type of name recognition that I had. It was just the fact that I was continually putting out quality material, that there was an audience of people that actually wanted it. And if you plan on doing the same, maybe you're already in this space and you want to stay in this space of having people know you, at least in some pockets of the internet, some pockets of the world, for your content, then you have to figure out a method for creating material on a continuous basis. Now, there are a couple different ways. There are two different ways you could be doing it from what I'm thinking of off the top of my head right now. One is you can talk about current events. Whatever just happened yesterday, you can make content about that. There are plenty of YouTube channels and audio shows and bloggers and whoever with TV shows of people who just talk about what just happened. So let's say in sports, in this football season, they talk about football every day, what happened in the last game. When it's basketball season, it's basketball. When it's baseball or whatever season, whatever's going on in any sport, those are the things that they talk about. So their business is attached to whatever's going on in the news. And that's a very sustainable business. I mean, the news has been around forever, right? Newspapers, news networks. Now we got people who have their own platforms. Individual people had their own platforms from their living room, just talking about whatever's going on in entertainment and sports and music and pop culture, whatever. There's always something going on. And depending on what platform you choose, there will always, not platform, but what industry you choose to focus on, there'll always be something new for you to talk about in that area. So you'll never run out of content if you want to do it that way. I chose to not go that route. I chose to go more of a The content that I put out here is more on the evergreen side, actually 100% damn near on the evergreen side, meaning you could jump in and listen to this right here 2 years ago. If I were to put this out, it would be just as relevant as it is today and just as relevant as it will be 2 years from now, when someone who doesn't even know who I am right now, but they will know me 2 years from now, they're going to listen to this, and this is going to be brand new, perfectly useful content in that moment, just as useful as it is here right now. So you could go this route that I went, or you can go the news route, where the news will supply you with your material. This route, you got to supply yourself with your own material. But the difference with this material is it doesn't have such a high, it isn't so volatile. When you're putting out content that's based on the news or based on current events, that is going to be very relevant at the moment that happens. Very, very relevant, because a bunch of people are looking at it and talking about it because it's what's happening in the moment. But when that moment has passed and that moment has been replaced by a new moment, that old material is pretty much worthless at that point, and you're going to have to create something else new based on what happened then. So you become subject to whatever's going on. Something brand new, some breaking news happens and you're on vacation, but that's your area that you chose to focus on. You got to put something out there because people are going to be waiting to hear from you. So again, those are just the pros and cons of doing it either direction. Or the cons of doing it on the evergreen side is that your material, like this topic right here, is not a current event. It's not a hot button issue. It's not centered around a tent pole event. Some big thing is happening right now. So it may not have as high of an upshot when it first comes out, but it will last longer. It has more of a long tail, is the best way that I would describe that. But that's not even the topic here today. The topic is, if you choose to go this evergreen route, how can you start utilizing everything that you come across as material for those of you who are or plan on being content creators? This is for anyone who wants to establish their name, you want to build a business, you want to sell any types of goods, etc. These are the things that you need to understand and apply. So point number one, today's topic, once again, everything is material. How do you make everything material? Number one, if you are going to be a content creator, you must start looking into every experience you go through for the angle that brings it back to your expertise. This is a skill that you develop. All right, this is not just something that you do one time. Each time you say, all right, how can I do it now? How can I do it now? This is a skill that you develop so that when you go through experiences, it starts automatically working in your mind. The wheels will turn in your mind without you even having to think about it. It becomes this automatic thing, involuntary skill that you have. Every situation you go through, you can already see. You can already connect the dots from what happened to how you can tie it back into whatever your area of expertise happens to be. Once you develop this ability, this is when everything, literally everything, starts to become material, and you have you got to choose what you decide you're going to talk about, rather than I don't know what I'm going to talk about. I don't know what I could talk about next. I run out of topics. This is what I do when, for example, I see a building under construction. I talk about, listen, this is the discipline, showing up every single day and doing the work. Any of you ever seen a building being built? When they first tore down the old building, then they laid the concrete, then they start building that building. Who knows, however tall it's going to be or wide it's going to be. It takes a long time, but you see those construction workers showing up every single day. Where I live here in Miami, there's construction going on all over the place in the downtown central business district area of Miami. And that area is actually expanding more and more because there's more construction. They're just expanding this area out until it's going to become this one huge area. It wasn't that huge 10 years ago when I came to Miami, but it's getting huger and huger. I know that's a new word. That's a work on your game word, huger. But what's happening is the construction every single day. I'm seeing these construction workers showing up to work at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, because I get up early. So I see them pulling up in their cars. I see them walking to work every morning, and I see them going home around 4 or 5 o'clock every single day. And they're going to these buildings and they're doing their work. And you can hear the construction, and you can see them laying down the concretes and putting the glass in the windows and working on the sidewalks and doing all the things that they're doing. And if you pay attention for a long enough period of time, it's interesting just to watch a building start from literally zero, where it's just I remember some of these buildings when they were what they used to be. Parking lots, empty rock, gravel pits, old buildings that got torn down and became brand new things. Then you see people walking into them. But I can connect that back to number one tenet of work on your game, the work on your game philosophy, discipline. Somebody showing up every single day, doing the work one day at a time, and eventually things come together. I went to a pizza shop last week and they messed up my order. So I had to talk to the pizza shop people and I had to talk to the place that I ordered it through. I wrote an article about this. If you're on my email list, you got it. And I could connect that back to, with all the details that happen within that, I could connect it back to some of the things that I talk about, that I've talked about here on this show. Somebody asked me a question in my direct message or something about some area in which they feel like they need help. And I think, well, they don't really need help. What they really need to do is this, and this. Those are things that I've talked about, and that's how I can always connect it back to my material. So anything that you go through should begin to plant seeds in your mind for what is going to become your future content. So what I'm advising you to do here, those of you who are content creators, you want to establish yourself as a thought leader by putting out information, expertise, your experiences, your perspectives in a particular area. All you need to start thinking about is how can every experience that I'm going through, how can I connect it back to what I do? And it's not always going to be an easy connection, easy direct connection between what you do and what exactly happened. Consider it a gift when it does happen, but when it doesn't, your skill as the expert, as the thought leader, is to find a way, find that connection from what happened to what you're talking about. You can connect those dots. It might not be as simple as dot A to dot B. You might need dots B, C, D, E, all the way to get to point F that connects it back to what you do. But this is a skill that you start to develop as you start to look for it. You got to be looking for something in order to find it, people. Most great ideas are not going to just drop in your lap. You got to be looking for them, then they'll start to come to you. It will plant the seeds in your mind. The seeds already exist in your mind, actually. All you need to do is start by thinking about how can I connect these experiences back to my content. You start watering those seeds, and then those seeds grow into plants. An expert in any area begins to see the angles that will always bring them back to their thing, whatever their thing happens to be. That's what you're going to be doing. Point number 2, today's topic is how to make everything that you experience, how to make all of it become material for you. Never waste a good experience without making that experience work for you, or a bad experience, but anything that's an experience. When I say a good experience, I don't necessarily mean something that you'll look back on fondly and positively. Like when that pizza shop messed up my order, I ended up leaving the place and not even waiting for them to make the pizza. I wouldn't say that was a positive experience for me because I wanted a pizza and I ended up not having the pizza. But it's a good experience in that it's good. The reason I'm calling it good is because it's an experience. It's something that I went through. There's a story that happened there. There's a bunch of context that went into there. And I knew as soon as it happened, there's an angle from which I can connect this experience of me not getting my pizza that I paid for to coming back to something that's within the work on your game philosophy, something under this umbrella of the things that I talk about. So that's what I mean when I say don't waste experiences without making them work for you. Once your mind starts working in this way that I'm talking about, tuning your mind to find the angles from what you go through, connecting the dots to what you talk about, anything that you experience, even if you didn't want to go through it, especially things that you didn't want to go through, because you'll probably have some energy about them. You'll probably be maybe you'll be angry about it. Maybe you'll be kind of annoyed. Maybe you'll be upset. Maybe you'll be sad and disappointed about it. When you have those kind of energies, usually we remember things that bring those kind of energies to us, right? So since we remember them, it'll be much easier for you to talk about them than something that was just a pleasant, calm, it was a good experience, but you could easily forget it. Those things that you go through to kind of piss you off, they draw attention from other people because our minds are all, as human beings, we are wired to notice things that bring up these negative energies because the negative energies connecting the dots bring us back to that principal energy of fear. Fear being the thing that keeps us alive for the most part. But since we don't need it for life or death situations on a day-to-day basis, most of us in most of our lives, those of you who are listening to this, we learn to unconsciously, we connect those dots to other things like anger, like stress, like somebody disagreeing with us, like not getting a pizza that you paid for. We connect those dots unconsciously. So if you can remember those situations, which you easily will remember them, and you can find a way to connect the dots back to what you do, it will draw attention from other people. Once your mind starts working in this way, everything you go through becomes material. And I say especially things that you don't like, because when you deal with things that you don't want, there'll be reasons why you dealt with it, which you can articulate. There'll be a story of how something or someone or somewhere messed it up for you. That's another thing you can talk about. All of that becomes material. As I told you, if you read my emails, you got the article that I sent out when I went to a local pizza shop here in Miami, ordered a pizza for pickup through Postmates for pickup. The pizza shop hadn't noticed the order, so they didn't even make it. Then they were taking too long to make it. Then they realized that I was a customer. I think they thought I was a delivery driver. So I then ended up having to tweet Postmates and send them emails, and finally got my $10.17 back. But I was able to turn that into material. And if you read the article that I sent about that in your email, you saw how I turned that into material. That's a skill that I developed over time just by always looking for angles for my material, because I knew I was creating more and more content every single day. And again, you don't have to create content every day, but if you can create content once a week, and you can always draw angles from your experiences to what you talk about, it'll be great, because people like stories. Stories work very well. Narratives, people love to follow, and people don't notice how much time a story is taking when it's a good one. So any stories, any experiences that you've been through, this is why you got to get out of your house and actually get some experiences in life. Even the ones that you don't like, they become material for your future content. Somebody complaining about, I have a book, The Mirror Motivation, which all you know about, which I ship out for free. All you got to do is take care of the shipping. Somebody complained to me that they had to pay for the shipping. So that led to a whole topic of cost versus value. I didn't actually do an episode of that on the show or write an email about it, but it was something that I thought of. This person doesn't understand the difference between cost and value. And I've talked about that already here on the show. So I can connect that back to my material. So maybe one day I'm holding on to that story. Maybe one day that'll become material. We'll see. Point number 3, today's topic is how to turn everything that you go through, every experience, into material. Become a keen observer of life, specifically being an observer of people, learning what they do, seeing what they do rather, and then trying to figure out, or asking them, or assuming, or coming up with your best hypothesis of why people do what they do. Because we can all see, we can observe factually what a person does, but we don't always know why they did it. I mean, we can decide, we can assume on our own why somebody did something, which is often we do that in a narcissistic way. We think that they're thinking how we would think, which is often incorrect. Maybe we can go off of what they said was their reason for doing it, which is sometimes true, but sometimes is not. And we can go off of whatever context clues we can figure out based on what we've experienced in our past, how maybe we would feel, what this person has done before, what we think may have been the reasons, our hypotheses for it. And again, you can always connect these back to whatever your topic is, whatever your material happens to be. Looking at what people do, trying to figure out why they do what they do, or your interpretation of what they do, or you could just ask them, hey, why did you do that thing? Why are things happening this way? And the reason why I'm suggesting that you can ask people why they do what they do, because people love talking about themselves. We talked about this every episode where I talked about communication and people skills. And then my course, people skills, which you can get into at workonmygame.com/people. I always tell you that people love talking about themselves. I like talking about myself. You like talking about yourself. Everyone we know loves talking about themselves. So if you see someone doing something that seems interesting and you ask them why they're doing it, they will talk to you and they will tell you why they're doing what they're doing, because everyone is our own favorite subject. So try to make fewer assumptions and get as much raw information as you can from whomever you're observing and whatever it is they happen to be doing, because all of this becomes what? Material. All of it becomes material for the future once you learn what people are doing. If everything that you're creating is just about what you think and why you think that person's doing what they're doing, that material might become kind of dull after a while, because now all your audience is getting, whoever happens to be consuming your stuff, all they're getting is your interpretation of what's going on. But it'd be a lot better if you would just figure out from that person, whomever you're watching, and again, whatever they're doing, why they did what they did. Then you can add your interpretation into it if you so choose. But the more experiences you get, talking to another person is an experience, because what you're going to figure out probably relatively quickly is not everybody thinks like you, not everybody talks like you, not everyone explains themselves like you, and many of our assumptions about other people before we talk to them often are proven very incorrect after we talk to them, or once we begin to talk to them. I'm sure I would say damn near everyone who is listening to this has experienced that before, but hopefully you were paying attention enough to notice the difference between what you assumed about them and what you actually found out to be true about them. Those are experiences. Dealing with people is an experience. It's always an experience, and it's always unique, because no two people are exactly the same. So the more people you can deal with and engage with on a consistent basis, the more experiences you will have and the more material you will have moving forward. So that's another reason why you need to get out of the house, not just on your phone, but actually deal with people in person, because every person you meet is a new experience and is material for possible new material. They will know then what will happen? You will know about them instead of thinking what you think about them. You will know what you know about them because you got it straight from the source. What is causing certain situations? What's causing people to do what they do? So notice that we're talking about people out here in point number 3 when it comes to making things material. Because how many people we have on this planet? 8 billion or so people. Every single one of them is different, and even the same person changes over time. A person may have one reason for doing something today, but you run into them next year, they're doing the same thing. Now their reasons have changed. Maybe they're doing something completely different for the exact same reason. So people, not only does each one of them individually provide a unique experience for you, but the same person can provide a bunch of experiences for you because people are multidimensional. I mean, is there only one side to you? Of course not. There are a bunch of sides to us. We have a bunch of reasons for doing things, and our reasons can change. The reason I do something today can be completely different for the reason why I do it tomorrow. And doesn't mean there's anything wrong with me. It just means people change. Just like you have changed over time, other people will as well. So people are a huge part of making everything material, which is again why you're not going to come up with a bunch of ideas for material and content by just staying in your house, because you're not getting around enough people. So get around people. There's a lot to be learned from them, and a lot of ways you can use people in a positive way for your own purposes. So let's recap today's topic, which is everything is material. How exactly to make this real for you, making everything material. It is by making sure that everything that happens to you becomes some form of your material. Whether you want to be a writer, a professional speaker, you want to be a coach, you want to be a consultant, you want to start a podcast, you want to have a YouTube channel, you want to do whatever else is out there, whatever other platforms are out there or will be out there in the future. If you plan on creating content as a way of establishing your name, building your business, selling your goods, this is what you need to be doing. Number one, if you're going to be a content creator, you must start looking at every experience and for its angle, looking through every experience for an angle that brings it back to your expertise. So whatever that happens to be, my expertise areas happen to be in the mental game, discipline, confidence, mental toughness, personal initiative. So when I see a building under construction, personal initiative. When a pizza shop messes up my order, I can bring that back to the topic of talking about business. Somebody asking me a dumb question in DM, depending on what the question is, I could probably relate it back to one of my principal tenets or one of the sub-tenets of those principal tenets. Everything that happens to you should be a seed that's planted in your mind for what can in the future become content. The water and the soil that allows that seed to grow is you fine-tuning your mind consciously and unconsciously to start looking for the angles of every experience you go through and figuring out, how does this work for my area of expertise? How can I bring this back to what I do and provide some value to my audience? An expert in any area trains themselves to see the angles that always come back to their thing. Point number 2, never waste an experience without making it work for you. And this way, every experience becomes a good experience, even the ones that you didn't want to go through, especially the ones that you didn't want to go through, because when you go through something that you didn't really want to have to deal with, usually there's some strong reasons why you had to go through it. There's something that was involved, or someone that was involved, or some place that was involved that did something that you probably didn't want them or it to do that caused that situation to happen. All of this becomes material. Somebody complaining about something, somebody messing something up, somebody saying something that you don't like, somebody doing something that they shouldn't have done. All of that becomes material if, again, you're paying attention, not just allowing yourself to feel whatever emotions, anger, or being pissed off or sad or happy about the situation, but also asking yourself, how can I relate this back to what I do professionally? And this way, you're always at work, even when you're not at work, because every experience is something that could become part of what you're doing for your business. You see how that goes? And point number 3, become a keen observer of life, specifically an observer of people, what they do and why they do it. Your interpretation of why people do things, or you can just ask them, find out straight from the horse's mouth why people are doing what they're doing, because people love talking about themselves. If you ask someone about something that they're doing that seems to be interesting, I'm 99 times out of 100 sure they will be willing to talk to you about it, simply because we all love talking about ourselves. Just like you do and I do, everybody else does. So try to make fewer assumptions and just ask questions. Then you will know things instead of having to merely think things. If you're only talking about things that you think, well, anybody can do that. When you talk about things that you know, that's when you start moving into that thought leadership expertise area, because you have the experiences, not necessarily because what you quote know, close quote, is facts or it's more right than anybody else's information. It's just because you have the experience. Experience lends to credibility. If you have very little experience in something, you can have a whole bunch of information, but you don't have the credibility because you haven't been out there 10 toes deep in the thing that you're doing. And usually whatever we're talking about when we're creating content or in our thought leadership spaces has something to do with people, right? That's the only reason people will be interested in it, is because it has something to do with them. Like, people aren't listening because they love you. They love whatever they're going to get that they can use for themselves. Therefore, your experiences with people will lend more and more credibility to you. And that's a huge way that you make everything material. Work on your game. Dre all day.